Welcome to The Who Project. I'm your host, Paul Gittens, where I sit down with leading professionals, artists, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. Each share their definitions of success, past and present, how they differ, if at all, and what milestones they've set for the next chapter of their lives. This isn't just any podcast. It's a celebration of real stories from real people. Together, we'll explore the choices that have shaped their paths, the challenges they've conquered, and how they bravely carved out lives on their own terms. Each episode is a treasure trove of insights, tools, and inspiring tales to help you ignite your own journey. So buckle up and get ready for some great conversations. PK, thank you for being here, my man.
Excited to be here.
Joining us on the Legacy Podcast. I think you are the eighth or ninth guest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can't believe that this is happening, man. We're moving forward on this Legacy Podcast, and the reason I said that you're eighth or ninth is like you're on my top 10 list, dude.
I know, it's like amazing company
right?
here.
You're on my top 10 list. We've known each other, what, 6 years?
6 years.
So 6 years ago, we met at an event, and we were in a box. I think it was a basketball game, and room full of people. I just remember talking to you and going, dude, I like this guy, right? Like, I felt like a good energy from you. And it wasn't what you said. It was like how you carried yourself. So for me, being a visible minority, being in a room full of people that don't look like myself, I'm always very cognizant of it, right? Maybe it's my age and it's just the way I was raised. But I didn't get that vibe, from you. I just got this vibe that you were just like this, just cool dude, and you were so secure in who you were in that room, and that was like, to me, was really positive. So hats off to you on
I would say
that.
Likewise.
Really,
being a younger person and seeing another visible minority, especially with the position that you were in, it was kind of inspiring, right? Because like you said, like we've had extensive conversations when you see other people of color in an industry where there isn't a lot of other visible minorities. It's very powerful. And I think the vibe was shared.
I appreciate that, because for me, when I first got into this business, literally there wasn't any people, right? And of color. So that was difficult for me. So I've felt like for all these years, almost 25 now, man, being in the business, and all of these years being in the business and not seeing that, like being like one of the first, was always a challenge for me. So that being said, I always tried my best to carry myself in the best way always, right? And show myself in a positive light. So thank you for saying that. 12 years. You've been in the industry for 12 years.
Yeah.
Right?
It's an exciting ride.
Jeez. You say it's exciting. I say it's impressive, because when I look at it, right, you started off as an intern, right? At St. Joseph's Media, right? Then you went to the agency side, right? And you started off in broadcast. Right? And you went over to the media side.
Planning side. Yeah.
And then from the planning side, you made a leap over to the client side.
Yeah.
And now you work at, one of Canada's largest retailers, right? And you're a media director, and you've done that in 12 years. Dude, that's impressive, man.
It's wild. It's you don't really think about those milestones, whether it's 12 years, 5 years, or, 25 years. I think it's part of our shared experiences but where we come from and the sacrifices that our parents or whatever stories that, that we share, you don't ever stop and think about those milestones. So it's great to it's a little bit refreshing to hear like, oh, I've done this and that from someone else.
Dude, that is the whole premise of Legacy.
Yes.
Right? Like the whole premise for me was to ensure that first and second generation Canadians, as we are, right, like we barrel through life, right?
Yeah.
And we always spend so much time thinking about where we want to get to, right?
Yeah.
And we don't spend enough time thinking about what we've actually accomplished, right? So that was the first part of it. And like the second part of it for me is just like being able to have this digital, legacy that we can always hold on to and remember a conversation, right? And that to me is super important. But the first part, like really barreling through life and forgetting about what we've actually accomplished, it's crazy. I can't tell you, man. This is like what I said, the 8th or ninth, conversation. I don't want to call them interviews, conversation I've had. And every time people always sit back and go, oh yeah, shoot, I guess I did do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's true. Right. And it's, first of all, it's awesome to be in your 9th interview here. Like
top 10.
The caliber of people that have been here. I think when you first asked me, I was like, I don't think I have a lot to share. And then, so I was really stoked and happy that you gave me this call, but because it made me think about all the things that, I've experienced. I've had the fortune and experience to be part of. And so you don't really stop and think unless there's like a need to do that. Right. So thank you for that as well.
And that's the problem, I think, with how we get through our lives is that we don't stop and think and give ourselves, I like to say, the flowers that are deserved, and sometimes when, if you stop and you do that, and my hope every time I've done this, when people leave and they get in their cars and they drive away, that they actually, replay the conversation in their head and become even more proud of themselves and what they've accomplished, right? And it gives them that like a rocket fuel to just keep doing, right? And keep showing themselves in the best light. So that's super dope for me, man. So if I can walk back a little bit, tell me about, being a broadcast buyer and then why you wanted to get on the planning side.
Yeah. I mean,
and what does a broadcast buyer do?
Yeah, that's insane. I think I'm sure we'll get this into it. But before I even got to marketing, my degree's in biology and psychology. So I'm not even a marketing, advertising person to begin with, which is even more wild. So I always say,
I know,
especially coming from a South Asian background, you're anywhere you go, you're a failed doctor first. If you're not a doctor, accountant, or lawyer. So that's where my journey starts. And then broadcast buying started with a good friend of mine reaching out that I met through my stint in Humber College with their marketing management program. And she had reached out and she said, PK, do you want to work at this agency? It's broadcast buying. And I remember I was working at Best Buy at the time as a mobile specialist. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. What is that? I had to Google what a broadcast buyer was. So that's where it started for me in terms of like trying to figure out what it is. And then my interview question to be a broadcast buyer. And so for people that don't know, a broadcast buyer is essentially a media buyer that buys the media space within radio or TV. So think about the 30-second or 15-second ads that you hear. A broadcast buyer would have purchased those spots strategically against different programs based on audiences. So it's very calculated. It's very nuanced, but very interesting. And for someone that doesn't know, I had the same experience. I was like, what is a broadcast buyer? But you needed a job and you wanted to get in the door. And so like everybody, I turned to Google and I was like, what is a broadcast buyer? And so my interview was really cool. I had a weird experience where they just asked me, what's the top 5 markets? And I was like, I don't know. So I just went through with the top 5 areas where I thought population was high. And he was like, yeah, that's correct. And I was like, oh, okay. Like we're off to a good start here. And so I ended up somehow getting that job and I was very, very fortunate. I learned so much from being a broadcaster. Quick turnaround times, the deadlines, but also like being having a boss at the time that really believed in, we can make it work. It's fine. Mistakes aren't, a big thing. We don't have to harp over mistakes.
Lucky.
And he was great.
Wow.
Really great at sort of instilling that.
Wow.
And so that sort of, after a long time, I think I did it for 1.5 years, 2 years. I sort of had this itch of, okay, well, how do I move? What else do I want to do? And the good thing about it at the time, I was at Dentsu Boss. It had a very good, very small startup kind of vibe to it, even though it was part of a bigger agency like Agents Network, Dentsu Agents Network at the time. And I loved it. That was one of my best sort of agency life in terms of the people that I got to meet, who I still keep in contact with. One of my, really close friends is from that time. And so we really got to meet, work alongside amazing people, amazing collaboratives that have, lasted and become, friendships out of that too. So it was a good time where I was able to find myself in sort of this advertising world, figure out what I wanted to do. And as part of that, I had a really good friend that told me, you really got to build relationships, got to really advocate for yourself. And so that made me put a little bit of a deck together and I built a Venn diagram, I remember, on my skill sets as a broadcast buyer and the skill sets of a strategy person or a media planner.
Wow.
And then I put it together and I went to the VP at the time and I was like, hey, I really want to be in the media planning side. And, I think that was my first step of being uncomfortable, but also really taking charge of what I wanted to based on the learnings that I had. And I also knew that, I felt very comfortable in the role that I was doing. I don't want to say that I was great at it or awesome at it, but I knew enough where I thought, I wanted something else. I wanted something different.
Wow.
And so
how old were you at that time?
I might have been late 20s, maybe, or mid 20s, maybe mid 20s. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, but it was exciting. But it's, I wouldn't say it's a me thing. I think I surrounded myself with a lot of good people around me that really helped me see how you take charge of your life and your career. And I think the people really, helped me get to
shout out to those people.
Yeah,
because,
yeah, of course.
That is not, I would say it's not an experience that many people get, I would think, and I'm just recalling conversations that I've had with other people. So, I mean, that's amazing. Good for you, man.
Yeah. And I think like the one thing I'll say about that time at Dentsu Boss was that everybody was mixed together. So what media wasn't with media, you had account managers, you had leads, you were close to the creative people, the creative directors, the copywriters. And
that's interesting.
It's such an amazing time when you can mix different skill sets, different ways of thinking.
You get to hear things.
You get to hear things.
Right?
You
go
like,
have a coffee with somebody. They tell you their experience.
And that's how I got to meet all the people that I got.
That's really cool.
And yeah, like, shout out to all those people because they're doing some fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
Whether in advertising or not. And it's really exciting to see their growth. But I would love to say, and it's true that they've all played a significant part in my growth.
I know two of those people. Well, one of them at that worked with you at the agency level that I still talk to this day. That's a really cool person. Just had coffee with her not too long ago.
Nice.
So shout out to her. She knows who she is. And even who you worked with up until recently, another one of those individuals, right? Like I know, and that was more client side, but just really good people. And so I guess the takeaway from this is like, if you surround yourself around really good people, it's almost like what your parents told you, what your mom told you, what my dad told me, right? Like, you're only as going to be as successful as the people you hang around with.
Yeah.
But there's so much truth in that, right? Yeah. Like if you get around like the right people, you can, your trajectory can take off, right? Huge. So then you got yourself into the planning side. What was that like? What does a planner do?
So they plan the media strategy. So they take like a client brief.
Yep.
So distill it again. What's the right target audience?
Yep.
What are the right channels? So think not just TV and radio, which is what I was buying.
Yeah.
But this is more planning on what's the right channels, the right mix to really deliver back to a client.
So obviously more strategy than.
So it's more thinking about like building the framework.
Yeah.
Of and then then you have the buying team that goes and buys and builds the plan and stuff. So I wanted to move into how do you build the framework? And again, it was just being exposed to people that did that. And then I was like, wow, what
did you enjoy it?
I loved it. It was great. I loved the client relationship side of it. I think that's where I thrive a little bit. I loved the, trying to solve the problem. And it was an exciting time. I learned a lot. And again, it made me feel uncomfortable again. And I think it's important to feel uncomfortable.
I have a saying that I've adopted, right? That growth occurs at the end of your comfort zone, right? And as long as you're pushing, right? Then you're growing, right?
Yeah.
And that's my ultimate goal is to continue to grow, continue to evolve, right? So I hear you, man. That's what I'm saying about the frequency. That's what I'm saying. It's like we're together on that. We're together on that. So you spent like what, 3 years at the agency at Boss?
5. So Dentsu Boss and then Dentsu X, I think altogether was about 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah. 5.
Wow. And then he does it again, folks. He does it again. He's like, okay, I need to make another move.
Yeah, that was interesting. So I would say my agency life, I really, wherever I go, I do drink the Kool-Aid. And I think it's like, I think it's important because you got to believe in what you do and the people that you work with and the organizations that you work for.
Right.
Because if you don't, then that's going to have an impact on your day to day. So at the time, my thought process was never to work client side.
Wow.
It just happened and there was a big opportunity and
you took it.
And I took it. You know, and I think it made me feel uncomfortable again. I think I chased the uncomfortableness. Maybe.
I think you do. I think there's a theme here, folks. So, so a question for you. Was it difficult making the transition from agency to client side? It's very different worlds, right?
It is. It is. I think so. I want to say it isn't because a lot of the skill sets that you have, and again, I went to a media role from a media agency to a media role on client side. So
fair.
It wasn't very different, but I would say there's different expectations. There's different.
Yeah, that's the part that I was thinking. I mean, when you're on the agency side, right, you're working long hours. Right? You're backing calls to the client, right? And you go over to a client side, as I understand it from folks that have made that transition, that, you know, you get a better work-life balance. Is that fair assessment or no?
It depends on the work, but yeah, I would say generally from agency life to client side, you do have a better work-life balance. But I think the servicing part doesn't change. You know, you service the clients from a media side, but you service the brands and the different portfolios internally, right? So I don't think that changes very much.
Thank you.
But I think, I also think it's a different office culture as well, right? And in terms of the agency culture and the client culture is a little bit different. And so I think that also goes hand in hand and why there's a different type of work-life balance between the two.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Man, like, doesn't matter where you go, you're going to thrive because you've been your current employer for almost 6 years or 6 years now?
Almost 6 years. Yeah, I think it's a little over 6 years.
Wow. Right? So, I mean, what I'm taking away from this conversation thus far is that you've made some really strategic moves, right? And they've worked out for you. And in those 6 years, you've gone from manager to senior manager to director of media, right? And recently you've made another leap, right? So, you know, wow, man, before we jump into to this new role, how different is like the director of media internally on the client side from, say, director of media on the agency side? Similar?
Hard to say. I mean, I would say, you know, I would want to say it's similar. I would want to say it's a little bit different at the same time.
Okay.
Because I think like on the agency side, you're still, you still have a client agency relationship, right? And so your tasks and the roles still, your day to day is still with the other media counterpart on the client side. But I would say within an internal agency, you have, I would say, a lot different responsibility, maybe a little bit varied, broader responsibilities beyond just speaking to another media person.
Got it.
You have the accountability of being able to, or having the accountability and the responsibility to also take that to the business leads and other stakeholders within the business. So you definitely have exposure to different stakeholders. And so I think from that, I would say it is a little bit different than being a director on the agency side. Now, I was never a director on the agency side, so I'm sure everybody's had different experiences. This is my experience and how I would look at it. So
that's fair.
Please don't come for me. But
no, that's fair.
That's how I would say. I think it's the responsibility feels there's a lot more at hand internally when you're an internal COE or a department.
Okay, that's fair. And you've done that, I mean, for quite some time and moved yourself up, like I said, almost 6 years, right? And each time you keep pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone, right? Now you've done it again, right? So now you've gone from media to brand, right? And it's a recent role for you.
Yeah, very recent.
Yeah. So I'm sure you're just getting your legs, if you will, on this one. But again, it's got to be different than being on the media side, right? Being on the brand side. Tell me what the day in the life of you, how let's look at it this way. How much different is it?
So I've been saying this a lot because a lot of people have asked me. I don't think the day to day is the skill sets required is vastly different.
Okay.
I think it's just you're applying it to more people and more different sides of the business than just looking at it from a media side of things.
Yes.
And so I think, like, again, I've had amazing mentors, an amazing group of people, my team itself, that have challenged me and also have helped me in many different ways so that I can be equipped to now take this sort of new challenge in my career. So I think, like, kudos again to the people that I've surrounded myself, to the mentors that I have, the advocacy that I've, been able to build for myself to then prep me to then say, hey, it's been a little bit an easier transition to this different, to this brand side coming from a marketing side. And I think it's because of the experiences that I've been afforded by, my lead, by my mentors, and, who I'm talking about, she is a fierce leader.
Yes.
And I think truly someone that I look up to is a people leader first that really wants to make her team thrive.
Right.
And puts their development first and foremost. Sabrina, if you're listening, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But I think her support and, has helped me get to a place now where I don't feel as scared, or I don't feel like there's a huge mountain to climb. And then through that, I've also been able to, get other advocates and other mentors within the business that have also further helped me sort of feel like, hey, you could do this. This is your lane. And I think when you have all of those people, cheering you on from the sidelines, it makes any transition easier. And it feels like you're so supported that even if you fail, even if there is, moment, because you're gonna fail and it's okay to fail, that, the fall isn't as harsh, or that it's okay to fall as long as it's not a really bad fall. And you're like, but again, I'm a really big proponent. I talk a lot. Sorry, but
no, this is really good
of having the people there to support you.
No, this is really good because one of my questions was going to be around mentorship, right? And I didn't include it, in my questions. But man, has it ever come out in this conversation so far, right? That having really good mentors, and being around really good people, again, changes your trajectory. So let me ask you this question. What would you suggest to, a young person that's looking to get into the business, right? What to do, right? And how to get in? And would you say that it would be different than, say, 12 years ago, like how you did it? Or would you say it's just still the same way?
It's the same. I think everybody says networking, and I stand by networking. I stand by building a group of advocates that's going to cheer you on. I wouldn't have been in this industry if I didn't have a person to say, hey, PK, you should get into this.
Right.
You should try this out, And she was working at the agency at the time.
Yeah.
And she was like, PK would be great for this. Again, like, it's the relationships that I built for someone to then go in and say, put their neck on the line, say, I think this person should be here. And I've been very fortunate enough to have those advocates for me. When I was a broadcast buyer, again, like David Wicked, great boss, great. I would say he's one of those, like, media savants, I would say, when it comes to buying. And he was a good advocate for me, right? And then I moved into the planning side, and Moira Gilderson on the Dentsu side, huge advocate. She really helped, push this narrative of and the opportunities for me as well within Dentsu. And then I went to, the client side, and then, I've had bosses like Sabrina who constantly push and see something where you probably don't see, where it helps you push yourself and think, maybe there are other opportunities. And I think, as cliche it is to say, I think networking, building relationship, building advocates for yourself through mentorship is really key to anyone coming into the industry and wanting to grow within the industry as well.
Okay. So Let me ask you this. Blue sky, right? Where do you see yourself somewhere in 10 years career-wise? Like, do you think that far, or do you just take it day by day and then look for opportunities as they pop up? Or are you that guy that goes, okay, I want to be here in 3, I want to be here in 5, and I'm going to be over there in 10?
I don't have a blue sky. I think there's things that I want to do. I want to grow as a leader for sure.
Okay.
But I would say every opportunity I've had, it's because I've been exposed to it in some way or form. And then I go, wow, I really like this. Or, oh, this would be kind of cool.
Okay.
I could do this.
Okay.
And I think like as you're exposed to different different jobs within your career, I think that's where I get like, oh, I really want to do this. Like, how do I get there? Yeah. Curious. Yeah. It's a good way to put it.
Okay.
A grand scheme of things, I want to continue to be a leader, and I want to continue to be able to be impactful in the industry, like everybody, I imagine. And I think,
well, I don't think everybody.
That's true. That's true.
That's the other problem that we do, right? And I say we, and I always do that, and I shouldn't say we because that's not the right. I shouldn't say that. It's something that I do. It's something I did for many, many years, right? Where I was like, I'm the same as everybody else. Right. And it wasn't until I started to realize that I'm not, right. Right. And, I do things differently, right. Which has kind of led me to the path that I'm on. Right. And I think and again, that's part of us barreling through life and never really looking around, just gunning through it. So I think what you've done, what you continue to do is not like everybody else.
That's true. That's probably true. And I can't speak for everybody.
Yeah. Like I see a lot of people, I'm just watching you and understanding and getting to know you better even more today in this conversation, getting inside your mind and figuring out who this guy PK is and what drives him, right? I'd like to pivot away from all these wonderful career accomplishments, right? And dive into a little bit more about the guy, the man, PK, and why he is the way he is, which kind of leads him to all the things that he has done, all the things that you've done, right? When I was doing my research, it's so interesting. You talk about all the wonderful mentors that you've had. But when I do my research and I speak to people about PK, I'm told that you're loyal, that you value friends and you value family. You have this amazing work ethic, and your what I call power skills are fine-tuned, right? So those are your soft skills for those.
Walk out of here with the biggest ego of my life.
No, man. No. And it's not to gas you up, right? It's really not to gas you up, but it's more along the lines as to say, hey, man, look at the legacy that you're creating. How dope is that? You're creating a legacy. This is what people are saying about you now. You know what I mean? How old are you? 30-something years old?
36.
Right? Like, so damn, dude.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not here to, for you to walk out thinking, the big head. I'd really love it, like I said, for you to walk out and go, yeah, you know what? Respect to myself. I'm giving myself the flowers today, and I want to continue to be that guy that we were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
And how do I continue to evolve to even more of a better person, right?
Yeah, I would say, sure, respect to myself and the village that really supported me.
Yeah. Talking about village, let's talk about your mom.
Yes.
So was your mom born in Canada?
No. I'm proud to be from a single parent household. We came to Canada in the early to mid 90s.
So wait a second, you weren't born?
I was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. And, she was we were fleeing a civil war at the time, right? And so we came to Canada, and she's awesome. We came to Toronto.
Okay. So that was going to be my question.
Lived and raised in Toronto.
Okay. All right. So when you landed in Toronto, Toronto's a big city. Where in Toronto did you first land?
Parkdale.
Wow.
Okay. King and Jameson.
Okay.
Went to Queen Victoria, then moved out, moved to King and Shaw. So Liberty Village, pre-Liberty Village that it is today.
Yes.
It was not as nice as it is today.
I remember we used to go to warehouse parties. If you're talking mid-90s, I'm dating myself, but yes.
So, and then I went to Parkdale Public School, went to Parkdale Collegiate, and then, went to U of T Scarborough campus.
Oh, wow. So you're a downtown boy.
I'm a downtown boy.
Okay.
Love it.
Okay. All right. All right. Are you an only child?
Yes, I'm an only child.
Wow.
I'm surprised I didn't say that. I say that quite often. It's like part of my identity where
So it's you and mom's.
Yes.
Okay. So tell me about your first childhood memories then. Because now you're telling me that you came here.
Yeah.
So do your memories take you back to?
Yeah, I mean, so many different. Wow, like it's hard to really pinpoint childhood experiences.
I know.
I've had a lot of amazing childhood experiences. I think my mom did a great job at, one, instilling you got to work hard, but two, but also giving me great experiences. She put me in daycare, day camp. She worked really hard to be able to give me those experiences that she didn't have.
Right.
And I think daycare and day camp then opened up a lot of, as an only child, you get to meet people, other kids. I think that's how I socially became a little bit more of an extroverted person. But you also got to go to movie theaters. You also got to play, do a little plays and drama things. Like I remember with day camp. So, tons of different experiences, growing up. Also, maybe that's part of the immigrant story, but we also got to go to my cousin's house a lot. I spent summers at my cousin's house, and it was really fun. And, community and building around the family is key, especially in my background. And I think I had a great childhood.
So you grew up downtown, right? It was a diverse community?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So there wasn't when did you realize that you were different, or you're a different ethnicity than anybody else? Like, you remember when that happened?
I don't know, man.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe daycare?
Okay.
Because a lot of people from my background, my community, they lived they were sort of raised at home, right? Or grandparents or someone took them. And so going to daycare was probably where you didn't see very many other people from my same background.
Right.
You had a diverse group, but that's where I was like, oh, there's no other, Tamil or pronounced Tamil, Sri Lankan people like me in daycare.
Right. So it didn't bother you though?
It didn't. No, as a kid, it made me feel different, but I didn't feel vastly different. I was like, oh, there's something different.
Well, that's fantastic, because, one of the things I like to do
in daycare, I will say in high school and public school, there was a diverse community as well. We had tons of people that were from the same background as I was.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to stop your thought there.
Well, it's interesting because, one of the things I'm doing on this podcast is I'm trying to get people from, different ethnicities and different age groups, different cohorts.
Yeah.
Right. So I have people from my cohort, that will speak about their experiences different than yours, which really makes me believe that, we're just evolving as a country and things have changed. Right. And it's not the same. And that's a beautiful thing. Right. So I wanted to point that out. The reason I asked that question is because I just want to know what your childhood experiences were like. Right. And good, bad, ugly, different, whatever. But I'm just,
Yeah. I mean, listen, it wasn't all great, right? Like, you're a single parent household, you live in downtown, you see your parents. In my case, I saw my mom work really, really hard. Yeah. Right. And there's also days where I was alone. Right. Yeah. Like, I don't have the concept of having babysitters and stuff like that. I was just left at home. I remember I would have been 5 at home. Just put the TV on, there was cereal, and my mom had to go work or stuff, right? And that's what we're taught. They were just like, don't open the door. Don't open the door for nobody. Even if they knock, you're just there, right? And so I think you tend to operate around you tend to operate around what you know, right? And so that's what I know. Being able to survive in spaces where you might feel uncomfortable.
Well, you become independent. You become self-aware.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest of 4, and my siblings are 7, 9, and 14 years older than I am. So essentially, I felt like I grew up as an only child because I never went to school with my siblings.
Yeah.
So I know what it's like to come home and be home alone, right? I'd come home for lunch. They called us latchkey kids because you'd put the key around your neck kind of thing, right? And you'd come home and you understand that responsibility, and you just become really self-aware of your environment.
Yeah.
Right. And you know what? Listen, I kind of think about it, and I don't know if I would change that. I love the fact that I feel like I'm self-reliant, right? And that I can survive. So I personally don't feel bad about it. How was your elementary and middle school experience? Did you enjoy school?
I was an average kid, You were saying my work ethic is great. Wasn't great in school, I would say.
That's interesting because things evolve, right?
Yeah.
Things evolve.
But I think it's also when you find your passion, it's easier to put in the work ethic.
Fair.
I
can attest to that.
Yeah.
I can definitely attest to that. Okay. So was anything that sticks out? First of all, was it challenging, or you just didn't really enjoy it? Because I know for me, I want to say a little bit of both, but I lean more on the other side. Just didn't really enjoy it. It's kind of boring.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's moments in my middle school areas where I'm they changed my life or anything like that, right?
Like the teacher that changed your life kind of thing.
I mean, I think I had a great, it was great. I wasn't I was an average under the radar kid.
Okay.
It was
Fair.
pretty cool.
Me too.
I had ups. I probably had a lot of downs.
Yep.
I didn't really I wouldn't find myself until university probably.
Okay.
But, I had some great experience. I joke with, some of my intro things, whenever I intro myself, I'm always but I had my 15 minutes of fame on a show called Uh-Oh when I was a contestant. If you remember that, they used to throw slime on you if you got the wrong stuff. So I had these wild experiences that maybe not many other people have had, right? But it was such a cool experience. I went to, like I said earlier, a day camp, which then you would go to day trips and stuff, and you got to go to the aquarium, and you got to go You
got to see the world bigger than the 1 kilometer radius.
Exactly.
Right?
But the other side is also in the apartment buildings we lived, all the kids would get together. We would play tag, hide and go seek. We would play baseball outside.
Right.
We would play a floor hockey and stuff like that. So those are all moments where I would say I had a great childhood where it shaped me to maybe probably be a little bit more social.
Yeah.
I loved being outside. I loved being around people. Whereas when I went home, I was kind of bored.
It was just you and mom.
It was just me and mom, right? And I didn't, we weren't privileged at the time. We were part of a lower socioeconomic, we had a lower socioeconomic status, and it wasn't hard. And so I didn't have cable. I didn't have, the newest systems or anything to play with.
Yep.
So it was just me and, watching movies or something, or watching TV that just came on, the antenna TVs. Yeah.
Wow.
And so, I thrived being outside. I loved, not being home because it was boring at home.
Did that happen all the way through to high school then?
Yeah.
With your high school experience, I've got teenagers, one, an adult son, and I know high school can seem like it's the longest 4 years of your life, right? Was it just you just cruise through it, and then it was you got to grade 12. You would have done grade 13 or OAC? You would have done OAC.
No, I didn't do. We were part of the cohort.
Okay.
We didn't have OAC.
Okay. So you got to grade 12 then, and it was okay, it's over, and I'm going off to university.
Yeah. So I will say it's a little bit nuanced. So I would say I enjoyed my social life. It was good. But the pressure of being a child, whether, I'm an immigrant or a first generation kid from immigrant parents or thing, I think we shared the same experiences. The pressure that you have to be successful is very, very high. So, I could say, I had a great childhood moments, but I also probably didn't thrive at school as well because the pressure was so high. Like I had to, I remember in grade 8, I was talking to my wife about this podcast yesterday. She kind of said, you really got to get deep. You got to really talk about the things that really impacted you. And I remember in grade 8, I didn't win any awards because, like I said, I was an average kid. I didn't really care to win these awards. And my mom took me out of the graduation and she was like, you don't deserve to be there, and made me walk home because I didn't live up to the accomplishments that she had sacrificed for. I think that's a lot of kids from an immigrant background feel because, the sacrifices our parents made, the trade-off for that is that you have to make it worthwhile. You live under this premise that, your parents sacrificed so much that you have no room to fail. You have to constantly, be at the top of your game. And for them to make it worthwhile, again, they have their trauma of, from, in my experience, it was, fleeing a civil war. And for them, it's like they have sacrificed so much so that you can, live out their dreams or live out and be that accomplishment, be that trophy for them. Like, and that's huge.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, man. I think that, even in my own experience, right, that the pressure for the children that were either, first or second generation, whatever, right? Like I was born in Britain, came to Canada. My parents were born in Barbados and went to Britain, then came to Canada. Mm-hmm. The pressure, right, to be successful it's intense, right? And they put this on you, right? And you live your life. And if, at least you said something earlier, right? It's like, you have to be a doctor, a lawyer, like there's so many careers out there, right? But you have to be like a doctor or a lawyer, right? And that was just so, in my opinion, just for me, in my experience, it was just so unfair to put that kind of pressure on them and on them being your children. And then is it because they sacrificed for you, or is it because they want to live vicariously through you? And that's a hard one to pinpoint. I want to get my parents on the show.
For me, I think in my experiences, I would say it's because they sacrificed a lot. Like my mom sacrificed a lot, right? Like she, our community, I would say, is also strict, especially for single parent households. You have to, prove that you've raised a good son or a good daughter or however the good, where there's nothing that's gonna, reputational wise, there's nothing that's gonna leave a mark. We talk about legacy, right? And a lot of it in my household is rooted on making sure you leave a very positive legacy, and the reputation of the family and the sacrifice that they did, is made worthwhile by the actions that you take and you put out in your world or in the real world. And so I think it's rooted in the fact, at least for me, on the sacrifices that my mom did. And listen, as a young kid in a single parent household, you grow up real fast because you witness the sacrifices firsthand. It's not sort of passed down in stories or people are sitting around and talking about, here's my sacrifice. Yeah. You see it. You see her working hard. You see my mom, making sure that, I wanted this food. She's coming home working, long hours, then coming home making food without any sort of like stress or anything to say, oh, I'm not going to do it. I'm really tired. I'm going to make it happen.
Well, can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
Shout out to moms.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Big time, man.
Huge, right?
Yeah. One of the challenges that I face, I think just in general, is we spend a lot of time worrying about what other people are going to say about us, so like that's one of the key things that I try to instill. And it's funny, as I age and I evolve, I used to spend a lot of time, a lot of my bandwidth worrying about how I was being perceived. And I think that goes back to like, there's a clinical term for that I've read. It's called toxic shame. And people make you feel like you're not good enough. So if you feel like you're not good enough, you're going to find ways to prove that you're good externally.
Yeah.
Right. And I hate that part of life. And I'm working through that myself, right? To stop worrying about, what other people think about me and live my life. And I'm trying to tell that to my kids now too, right? It's like, let's just stop worrying about, you're going to be okay. You're good enough who you are. Right. And let's stop worrying about what other people are thinking about us. And that's part of my takeaway, with all these conversations. So I feel you, man. And again, shout out to mom, because a single mom, you've raised a great man. So,
I'll let her know.
yeah. Well, hopefully she'll listen to this, to be able to go from where you were to where you are. There's a great book. I don't know if I told you about this book, Dan Sullivan. It's called Gap in the Gain. And it really essentially speaks to measure where you came from and where you are now. And that's the gain.
Yeah.
Right. And stop worrying about the gap, right? Stop worrying about what you don't have, right? And who has what, right? And just think about it. Like, look where you came from, right? Look at the circumstance. Look about that sacrifice. Let's use that word again. Where your mother sacrificed, right? She fled, came here, and had to establish herself. You did say something earlier about cousins. So do you have cousins here?
Yeah. I have cousins here, and again,
so family is important.
Family is important, and they're a big part of my childhood as well. Where, again, I got to go to their house during the summer sometime.
Were they local or were they?
They were in Scarborough, and I was downtown.
Okay.
So it didn't feel local at the time.
Yeah. Damn, I got to take the bus. I got to take the train.
It was a once in a while thing, but I loved it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like family is huge. And I think maybe that's what instilled, like, surrounding yourself with people that are going to vibe for you and you're going to vibe for them. Right. And I think, like, again, I would say in every point of my life, I have surrounded myself with amazing friends, family that have really kept me up.
I love this. This is really positive. I think out of all of my conversations I've had with people, I don't think I've had this conversation where somebody has been, so transparent about, having really good people around them that help them, get to where they are now. So tell me about university. So you got into university, you studied psychology?
Yeah. I studied psychology
UFT.
at a UFT Scarborough campus. Have a degree in life sciences, psych and bio. I had really good. That's where I feel like I found myself. I had a great group of friends, lots of different friends.
Still I think friends to this day.
Some of them, yeah, still part of my close circle of group of friends from university, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, they really shaped me in so many different ways, challenged me.
So did you commute back and forth to UFT Scarborough campus?
Yeah, we had actually moved closer to Don Mills and Eglinton by that time, but yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it was still commuted from there.
Okay.
It was good. I got to, like I said, the people there I met so many different people. And I think there's also something to say of the people that come in and out of your life. They don't have to be there forever. And I'm a big believer in that. Like, I think the friendships that I have today, they're amazing. They've helped shape me, and I've hopefully imparted something for them as well. But I think there's a lot of people that have come and gone in my life that have also had a big impact for me and have also helped me in many ways. So shout out to them as well.
Hey, that's a fantastic point, because, we tend to forget that part.
Yeah.
Right? That people that you encounter throughout your life, right? Good or bad, right? Kind of shape you in certain ways, right? So, and somebody that you knew that had an important part of your life at that particular time, just because they're not in your life today doesn't mean that they didn't have an important impact in your life. So that's a really interesting to point out. Do you think that university prepped you for the real world?
Right. What way?
To get out into when I say the real world, I mean the labor force. Like, did you feel like when you graduated, and I know you left UFT and then you went to Humber, right? So maybe if I rephrase that question, like, do you think that your post-secondary education, right, at both institutions really prepped you? Like, did you get into the labor force thinking, okay, I'm ready?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
I think, like, post-secondary education in general probably gives you the critical thinking skills.
The hard skills.
probably how to cram stuff last minute, and you had to like study or do any of that. Work under pressure. Maybe there's some elements where I think post-secondary does help you. But I think until I first started my job, that's when I really felt like, oh, like I got things to do.
Yeah.
I think as a coordinator in the advertising business, you go in, you get handed a bunch of invoices to do, and then you're just sitting there plugging away these invoices. Sounds mundane, but those skill sets are like, wow, I'm doing something.
Right.
And then there's like some discrepancies here and there, and you're like, whoa, I figured it out. This is what it is. And so I don't necessarily think post-secondary in general, like, is going to give you everything and all the tools right away. I think post-secondary, with the experiences that you have in the real world with having different jobs or whatever it is that everybody does, that helps shape your career and how you build onto it as you move forward.
See, so I tell my kids that as well, right? Like, you'll get the hard skills from post-secondary school. I'm a firm believer in what I call, you heard me say power skills, which are, just another way of saying soft skills.
Yeah.
Right. I think that those are equally important. And I think that they're really becoming more important in the labor force today. Right.
Yeah.
And I see that you excel in that department, right? Like I could just tell. So you got out, you worked, you're doing the Canadian thing, right? You got your education, you're moving up the ladder, and then, you find the one and you get married. Wow. Right?
Yeah.
You get married, man. So how long have you been married now?
2020. So 2021. Sorry.
3 years.
3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you get married. You start a family of your own.
Yes.
Congratulations.
A little girl. Yeah.
Woo, she's gorgeous. She's
amazing
today. She's so cool. I love the sunglasses. Wow. What's her name?
Isla. Yeah. For those listeners, when we talk sunglasses, she's got this phase where she loves wearing sunglasses.
She's almost 2, right?
14 months. Yeah, almost 2.
Months.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God. Sometimes I look back at photos and I can't even remember when my kids were that young. So absorb it all, keep taking those photos and just love that experience. So what kind of father do you want to be to Isla?
It's tough, right? Because my wife and I talk about this a lot. And my dad passed away when I was very young. I was about, 6-8 months, I think.
Wow.
And so I've never really had a father figure. I've had uncles. I've had people there that sort of stepped in when they needed to.
So you talk about this with your wife?
Yeah.
I love it.
She really challenges me.
I love it.
For the better in a lot of ways. And I think it's definitely made me think about like what type of parent do I want to be?
Yeah.
With to Isla. And so, it's very different. And I also think like we don't have to mimic the same type of parenting skills that our parents left with. I think there's a lot of things we can learn from. We can also change and adapt from. Like,
couldn't agree with you more.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I like to say like you take what you think is really good from what your mom did, and you dump all the other stuff.
Exactly.
Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you create your own as you go.
And so I actually struggle with that because I often think, would I have had the work ethic? Would I have, a lot of people say I'm a really good public speaker. I'm really good. I could present really well. That came from like pressure. That came from like my mom making me practice in grade 5, a presentation for like 3 hours straight. She was like, you can't look at anything. I had to memorize everything. Wow,
she was tough.
She was tough. Right. So I often think I have this chat with my wife all the time. And we talk about like, do I have to be this strict person?
Authoritarian.
To be able to, because those skill sets has probably been a formula as to my work ethic, to me feeling like I gotta really push myself, or me being okay with the uncomfortableness even. Mm-hmm. But then we get into, it's like, why do we have to do that? Mm-hmm. Why does it have to be that way? Right. And, what if there was no pressure, but she was really passionate about something and she just thrived in it, right? Yeah. And so, we talk about this all the time, that it doesn't need to be rooted in this high pressure, environment where you can't fail, and you grow because you can't fail. And I think there's other ways where you can build growth. And so for me, going back, long answer is, I think we want her to be happy. We want her to find her passion. We want her to not feel like she has to go down one pathway, but be open to failure and to pivot from failure and build up from that, right?
Wow.
Because that builds confidence in itself. There's so many people that I know that can just adapt so quickly from failure. I gotta like, if I get hit hard, it like psychologically, I gotta go through this, you know, I gotta like take some time. I gotta be like, why didn't it work out? And then I get over
but
the hump and
you know the
good.
reason why now though, right?
Why I get over it now?
No, like, so why you like, and I'm no, for the record, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but just in my own readings, like, if it was drilled in you that you had to be perfect and then you make a mistake,
it's like the worst thing.
Yeah, right. That's how I'm deriving my comment from, right?
Oh, because, that's fair. Yeah,
right. Because I've seen it in my own self, right?
Yeah.
Like I've seen it in the way my parents did it. I've done it to my kids, and I see, there's a age gap between Jay and his brother and sister, and I think about the human being I was, right, in around your age, and I'm listening to what you're saying right now, and I'm like, wow, he is really, really in tune and really profound and really mature, right, in the way you're thinking, because it's kind of the way it is the way I look at it, and I've evolved too. Yeah. Right. And I would say shout out to my wife, because she really challenges me to think like that. I come from like, you gotta have some boundaries. You gotta have some strict things, because that's what really pushed me. And I think, she reminds me a lot about, well, it doesn't need to be like that. You don't have to do it the same way. Wow. I think for her, she always says, I just want Isla to be happy and not feel like we have to make her feel like she has to live for us. Right. Or, we have to vicariously live in her success. Yep. I think for her, like, if I can, my legacy, we talk about that. If she goes back and says, I had the best parents, you know what I mean? Like, I had such fantastic parents where I didn't feel like I had to do all these things to win their love or feel validated. I would love for her to just be happy, enjoy the experiences that, she's gonna, come across in her lifetime. Mm-hmm. And, she doesn't have like any sort of angst towards anybody. And I think also, like, I'd love for her to be, of course, I'd love her to be successful. I'd love for her to be kind and super smart in her own way. Yeah. For me as a parent now, I would just want her to be like, is she smiling? Is she happy? Is she having a good time? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, is she able to experience the things? Like, are there any barriers that's preventing her from experiencing things? Like, for me growing up, financial means wasn't something that I had access to. Right. So my experiences were either working around that or, this is what I experienced. And they were amazing. They were great. Yeah, I didn't have to have a thing. Yep. And for her, like, it could be, like for me, going to a movie was like a highlight because it wasn't something that we did often. Right. And so I was saying going to my cousin's house because they loved going to movies and stuff. And I used to like tag along and stuff. Yeah. Whereas at my house, it wasn't a thing that we did. And so maybe her thing might be way different. Right. Because, I've been privileged enough to be able to remove some of those barriers for her today that I had growing up. And so I think like for her, it's like, I hope she can do whatever she wants. And then she goes through it and she's like, it's not for me. I hope she has the confidence to be able to find another direction or another redirection or something. Whereas I think like we often live in this way where it's like, I did this, I got to be successful at this. If I don't, I failed. And now if I failed, now I don't feel the validation from, things seep in from our childhood, from trauma and things like that. 100%. So, yeah, I think for her, like right now, that could change. I don't know. But right now, she's smiling. She's happy. She's living her best life, at the expense of both of us. I'm joking. Yeah, I lose sleep. I'm dead inside a little. And I'm just kidding. But no, she's really, really awesome. Man. And I just want her to be happy. Jeez. I don't even, I'm at loss of words, man. Like I'm listening to you speak and in my mind, I'm recounting, how I was raised and how I, raised my kids and why it was so important for me to be successful. And I wanted them to have all the things that I didn't have. And man,
I'm still guilty of that though. It's not perfect. I don't have the perfect formula,
this is a work in progress, man. It's always going to be a work in progress. I guess my cautionary tale and all of that is that as much as I say I don't want to live vicariously through my kids, right?
Yeah.
There is a part, if I'm going to be honest, where maybe I did, like maybe giving them all the things that I didn't get growing up. Maybe that's me living vicariously through them.
Yeah.
Maybe it is.
Yeah,
maybe it is, right? And then getting upset, right? When they're not as happy as I expect them to be.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how crazy is that?
It's true. It's true.
That's
crazy.
You know,
I think it made me think about something, and my wife says all the time, I want her to be driven.
Yeah.
So I want to be happy, but I want her to still be driven. And that's a key point. But that's where it's like, I'll have to learn what drives her. You know, instead of me instilling, this is what needs to drive you, I would love to build off of what drives her. What is something that I could help her in her passion and what drives her. And so that's a little bit of a nuance.
Segue for something that I really believe in. And it's a mindset, right? And it's the power of possibility mindset, right? Having, you know, as it's defined, it's the willingness to see possibilities everywhere instead of limitations. And I think that's what you're thinking, right? You know, that you'd like for your daughters, be able to open, you know, to have a vision that's so wide and be able and experience so great, the breadth and depth, right? That she can see what's possible for her own life.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that amazing if
if
that could actually happen, right? Where she's not feeling the pressure from her parents of being A, B, or C career, but through the experience that you're giving her now at 14 months and beyond, right? That she can see the possibility for her own life.
Yeah.
Right? And live her own life and be on her own journey. I think the power of possibility is huge, you know? And I even think that you and a lot of, you know, me and you know, children, you know, of immigrants that are born in this country, I think what's really important is that even our parents, you know, your mom and my parents, and really had to believe in their own way, you know, on the power of possibility. They had to believe, right? Your mother had to believe that fleeing her home country and coming to Canada, right, with her son, right, that there was a possibility, that she had to believe that there was a possibility that it would become better, right? She believed in that power. So I think it's really interesting when we peel that onion back, if you will.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting, because it's true, right? And I also see, like, when you don't have many barriers stacked against you, the possibility becomes more meaningful and achievable.
Yeah.
And so I would say, you know, my mom probably didn't have the same privileges that I have today to be able to provide Isla with. And I think so it's not to say anything negative about my experiences or even my mom's experience or even other people that have been in the same shoes, where, you know, you're not as privileged to be able to provide for these things. And, you know, we've had to overcome our own barriers to now be able to provide this easier way to look at life. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but, you know, she doesn't have the trauma of someone fleeing war. She doesn't have the trauma of, you know, am I going to have food? You know, am I going to eat the same thing? Or, you know, she doesn't have that yet. I don't know what her experiences are going to evolve to, but I think that's where it's like really exciting for Ange and I, where we can, it's a dream, I think all immigrant parents share, is that, you know, their kids or their grandkids, you know, don't have to deal with the cards that were stacked against them.
They laid the track, man.
You know what I mean?
They laid the track, and, you know, and I can only imagine, you know, what it feels like to be, you know, your mom, and she's raised you. Now she's a grandmother, right?
Yeah. But I would say even for Ange's parents, right? Like they immigrated here in the 60s, and they also worked very, very hard, even though, you know, Ange comes from, you know, I would say, you know, a nuclear family. I grew up in apartments, you know, they grew up in a house, you know, in the suburbs, and they have a way different experience, but they still have the same sort of, like, they had to work really, really, really hard to to make something or do something.
Yes.
And I think those experiences, you know, while my cards are much different, her cards and her family are much different too. But there's this common thread.
Oh my God, you took the words out of my mouth.
There's that common thread where they had to work really, really hard to provide for themselves and to be able to like overcome their own hills and you know, challenges.
Well, you see, and again, that's why I love the concept of legacy, because you can have different experiences, right? You can be raised in different parts of the city or the country or whatever. You can be even different ethnicities, right? But you are first and second generation Canadian, and you came to this country for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. And you came, and I keep going back to it and thinking that you came here with that mindset that it's going to be better. It's got to be better. Right. So it's that power of possibility in their minds. Right. And like, to your point, it might have been different, you know, households and how you were raised or the experiences you had. But that common thread was just that. Like, how do we get up? Like, how do we, you know, build ourselves up, and how do we get our kids to build themselves up? Right. And I think anybody that's, you know, a responsible parent or parents that want the best for their kids, they do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they just do that. So like, kudos to all the parents, right? You know, and now grandparents, you know, that laid the track, right? So, I mean, that to me, that's the whole beauty of why we're here and what we're talking about.
And kudos to you, man. Like, you've done, like, I look up to you and your parenting styles too. It's pretty inspiring. So,
well, you know, I'm not perfect. You know, I'm definitely not perfect. Get Jay, want to come over to the mic and tell him how unperfect I am? He's laughing. I said, so Jamal is doing all the sound for our podcast. God bless him for coming up here and spending his time with us. But yeah, I mean, if, you know, my kids, doesn't matter what you do, you know, PK, you're going to do something wrong.
Yeah.
Right. But I think the reality is that if you can see, you know, that you've raised good human beings.
Yeah.
Right. That are going to contribute to this planet.
Yeah.
Right. In a positive way, then I think we've done our job.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm trying to take the, you know, that pressure off, and that it was on, but I'm trying to alleviate that pressure of, you know, success. And how successful do you have to be, right? So, you know, like that word success too, like that's another thing. Like, what does success mean to you?
Yeah. And so the one other thing I would say is also the pressure to not fail is big too, and make mistakes.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, huge. I think when I look about both of our childhood between my wife and I, you know, we're so afraid. We were so afraid to tell our parents we failed. Like, you know, I had to hide report cards, you know?
I was going to ask you that question.
You know?
I was going to get into that failure part, because it's such a sticking point
100%
for us, right? For, you know, again, for kids that are first and second generation, because, you know, again, our parents come here, they in their minds, just imagine in their own minds, they have a vision, right? And that vision is perfect. That vision is, I can't fail. Right. So if I can't fail, I'm putting it on my kids that they cannot fail.
Exactly.
There's no chance you can fail. Right. So tell me about success and your relationship with success. Like, do you feel that you're successful?
No.
See?
That's what I was saying earlier on. We were talking about, like, you know, I was like, I don't know what I have to talk about, because like, I don't know if I have any great milestones. And you made me think, oh, like, I guess I've done this, and that. But in the whole journey so far, you don't think that those are successful things, because those are expectations that you had to hit.
Yes.
Right. I didn't have the fortunate of being like, oh, wow, like I did this, or wow, you don't really have a time or a moment to celebrate that, because you're never taught.
It's never good enough.
You're never taught. Exactly. You're never taught that those are moments you need to celebrate. It's keep on going.
Yeah. See, so that's important. You know, celebrate, you know, the overall, you know, macro achievements, but also celebrate the small wins when they happen.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't. I know I don't. I know my wife doesn't. Right. And it's crazy. And we talk about it and we can intellectualize it. But the reality is that we don't, you know, we don't do it, you know, or I'll swing the pendulum on the other side, and then it'll be like, we'll do something, you know, I'll want to do something like really big. Right.
Yeah.
To celebrate. And I think that we just got to get, you know, into that groove to think that, you know, we can give ourselves the permission,
I mean,
to be happy.
You were telling me about this podcast for quite some time.
Yeah.
Right. And then it finally happened and I was so excited. But those are small moments where I'm like, wow, super cool.
Well, you know, even with that, right? Like the fear of even doing it. And am I going to suck? Right? Are people going to say no, Paul? Right? Like, do I think I have these relationships with people and then it's really BS and they're not going to show up? And like every single time somebody comes, I'm in awe, right? Because you're giving me your time, which is crazy to me, right? So there's so much love in my mind for you and the people that come and spend their time doing this, because man, like I look at myself and go, yeah, it's starting this thing, like this legacy podcast. I don't know, is it going to be a flop? And to get inside your own head, right? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if this becomes ginormous or it doesn't. What matters is that we're having this conversation. What matters is that we're going to impact each other.
Yeah.
And what matters is that we'll take that impact and then we'll impact others. That's the dope part about all of this. You know what I mean? You'll spend your time thinking about, you know, how do I want it? Like, you know, you'll continue to spend your time thinking about how you want to, you know, interact and raise your daughter and the relationship that you have with your wife and relationship you have with other people and how you're going to mentor other young people or how you're going to manage other people, because you're going to be thinking about my legacy.
Yeah.
Right? How dope is that?
Yeah.
Right?
It's well said.
Well, thank you. I really wanted to touch on happiness too, because that's another thing. Like we talk about success, we talk about failure, you know, but we really what does happiness mean to us? Like, are we happy? I've read that happiness is fleeting and it's difficult to attain. What does that word mean to you? Like happiness.
This one's tough because.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, I'm happy. I think, am I content? I don't know. You know, I have a happy life. You know, things are good when it's good. Sometimes it's bad, but I have, again, the people around me to help to pick me up a little. And I'm blessed to have those people, whether it's friends, family, coworkers, or thing, but, you know, really having that support system. But to me, and I talk about this a lot with my friends who I see are content in life. And they're really happy with the routines that they have. And they're not like, what's next? What do I got to do? You know, what's the thing that I got to keep driving for? Because it's different. There are some of my friends who I look, and I don't think they've ever told me that they're happy or contentful, but I look outside in and they're chasing really cool experiences in life. And you're like, maybe that's what happiness is. And being content. And so I don't know, but I think for me, it's like, it's an ongoing definition. And maybe, I don't know.
That's interesting because, you know, I understand that, right? And I chased happiness, or I was in this pursuit of happiness, and it really is fleeting. I think what now at my age and where I am and my mindset is the word that's really resonates with me is fulfillment, which is, you just said, which is contentment, right? It's, you know, it's that state of mind of being able to accept who you are, you know, being grateful for what you have.
Yeah.
Right. And being optimistic about the future. Right. Like that to me, that's being content. That's being fulfilled. And did I ever not understand that? Right. My wife, like, God bless her, you know, 22 years, we'll be married this year. So God bless her. Thank you, Eileen. Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
For putting up with me, because I would be like pushing hard, right? Like we gotta get more. We gotta get more. We gotta get more. And she'll look at me and she'll be like, Paul, like, when's enough? Right? And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I have the same conversations.
What are you talking about? When's enough?
Yeah.
It's never going to be enough. You got to keep pushing. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. And so now I look at life and I go, wow, like I showed you the photo on my phone, my kids, right? Cole graduated, and, you know, all three of them in the picture. Like, that gives me fulfillment. Right? So it's not like I got to move from this house to get a bigger house, or I've got to do this and I got to drive this car and I got to have this amount of money in the bank and all of this stuff that, you know, it's like a checklist. Let's tick boxes, you know?
So funny you say that. I was just having this conversation yesterday 2 days ago with my really, really close friends whom I met in university.
Wow.
And he was saying his cousins had come over, and he was saying that, you know, they had talked about, you're doing life wrong. you're not really enjoying life. You guys are always on a go, go, go schedule.
Yep.
And he was like, my life is great. I do this, I wake up, I have a job, but I come back and I enjoy. And I think they lived in Australia or something. And they came and told him, like, you guys here are so wired to continuously keep chasing. Got to get the bigger house. Got to get the other thing. Maybe it's materialized. Maybe it's different experiences. Maybe it's traveling. So that's a very interesting, thing to talk about, because it's a thing that a lot of people, I think, feel they have to live, up to the Joneses or, whatever it is.
Well, that's that whole gap and gain thing again, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I need more because that person has that. And, and we might not even do it like consciously, but we're doing it subconsciously. Or it's even like, how do I move up the ladder? Right? Like for me, it was like, how much more money can I make? Can I move up the ladder? Right? How far can I go?
Do you ever feel, and let me ask you this, as a son of, with your immigrant parents, and, with my lifestyle, I feel like there's this balance of, I want to chase things, but I also got to be very, very grateful for all the things that I have, because either it's going to put up bad karma and everything's going to crash down. And so there's this balance of constantly being like, I want to be, have the confidence to chase all these things, but I can't have too much, because if I don't do that, somewhere or something is going to go bad. And then there's this balance of, narrating the challenges and the overcomes that you've had, but then also chasing fulfillment, also chasing gratitude, also now chasing something in the future. I find it, such like it's a juggling act of certain things. And I think my experiences would say a lot of immigrant kids have this like complex thing that they got to juggle with, of not wanting to chase too much, not, also making sure that everything stays intact, but also, I have this like really scary life that, it was tough. It was a tough upbringing, but here I am.
Wow.
I don't know. I feel like, do we overanalyze
100%. Like, I'll put it to you like this, right? You're supposed to be successful, whatever it, quote what success is, right? Which for them, it's like, it's more of a title or a career, right? That they understand, they being our parents, right? And then you can't fail, right? Because that's not an option. But there's this thing where, like, my parents my parents are from Barbados, right? So it'd be like, you don't hang your hat higher than you can reach it, kind of thing.
I have this thing because my mother-in-law says that to me all the time. And I'm always like, why? Why can't I do that? Why can't I keep hanging? Why don't I have the confidence? Because it's like, what if it all crushes down? Or what if that impacts your family? Does that mean you're not going to show up for your family? So we often have to live in this container.
Fear. It's like you live in fear.
Yeah.
I lived in fear for decades. Right. And being, like I said, one of four, and nobody being in the kind of business that I'm in, or industry that I'm in.
Yeah.
I mean, you're literally stick handling your way through it the whole while. And I felt for decades, man, that, like, call me paranoid, but I felt like people were like waiting for me to crash and burn.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel that too.
Right. And it's like people want to build you up, but in the same sentence, you also feel like it's quick, that if you make one wrong move, man, the whole house of cards is going to come crashing down on you.
And that's that imposter syndrome that, 100%. People have to feel, right?
100%.
Even going into, I said earlier, so many great people that have made me feel validated enough to be in this new role, right? Or do something in my life. But I constantly have this narrative. Am I good enough to be here? Do I have everything, all the checkbox? And I think when we talk about legacy and imparting something with our kids or, our nephews, our nieces, or even just, friends, I would just say, like, I would love a world where my kid doesn't have to have that feeling of being validated in whatever they choose to do, or that thing where it's like, do they have to have the same imposter syndrome that I deal with every single, time?
And that's because that all goes back and peels back to, your childhood, and and you have to be perfect, and you have to do things and say things the right way, and God bless our parents for instilling a work ethic into us, but that's the flip side of it, right? And it doesn't matter what you do, PK. I think that the world is going to continue to evolve, and to really work on that now, like even little things, like you said she's beginning to walk, or she's walking now.
She's walking now.
She's walking now. So remember when, I don't know if we had this conversation about falling, right? And letting them fall as they're beginning to walk, right? Because if you don't, and you go, no, like that, that reaction as a parent, no, you're gonna fall, and you try to save them from falling.
Fear.
Creates that fear, dude. Everything that we're doing, we've got to be so like in tune and mindful, and self-aware of the things that we're saying, because it will shape them. And we've watched even social media and how that's having an effect, and it's scientifically proven how it's altering the brain, right? That's going to be scary. So all the exterior things, external world that your daughter is going to go through, you got to give her like the best before she goes out into that world.
It's true. And I think what you were saying earlier, to tie all of this together, is like, and again, this is probably our shared experiences, but as a person of color, this is where it's like, you don't have a lot of room. You don't feel like you have a lot of room to fail. And it's not because, the environment or society, I don't feel like has done that, but it's sort of, you walk out of this world as a representation of your parents' sacrifices, of you being part of a visible minority group. And so you were talking earlier about reputation. You were talking earlier about like, living this part where you can't fail, or you got to do more, or you got to do these things. And I think it comes with that, our shared of experience 100%. Of, being visible minorities and not having the breadth or the laneway to fail or have a negative reputation, because then somebody's going to say, well, like, not that they are, but you feel someone's going to say, well, did we fail?
100%.
Did we?
I mean, listen, when I walk into a room, 25 years ago or even today, I still feel the same way, right? I got to represent a certain way. I got to carry myself a certain way. I've always carried that as the pressure on my shoulders, right? To be able to dismantle, debunk whatever prejudice there are, right? Of my people or people of color, right? So I step up, you know what I mean? And I
code switching.
Right. Yes, sir. What I mean? That's 100%.
How we've had to, been forced to sort of think about things differently than our own, live, like childhood experiences are how we've experienced. We've had to adapt to a different environment, and where we've had to employ different code switching.
100%.
Where it's like, it's so funny. Like, I used to talk on the phone, and my friends always joke around. You don't sound like you're, a visible minority. You don't have those accents.
I get the same thing.
You don't do it. You really sound like, Canadian, or I want to say something else, but I don't know if it's the right way. But, those things could be looked at negatively sometimes, but it's also helped me. And I have to acknowledge that, right? That I've had to adapt in that certain way.
And we could talk for hours on this subject, because I think your experience going to daycare, going to day camps, right? Being around, other Canadian kids, right? You didn't purposefully do it. You know what I mean? But it's just become part of your skin, who you are. It's who you become. And then you get into the labor force, and you realize, right? Like those were really like some power skills that you learned along the way that you didn't really internalize, but you've actually incorporated them into who you are today, right? So like that actually leads me into like this thing that I love to talk about, like superpowers, right? And I believe everybody has them, and it's a thing that's innate to you, right? And I mean, I'm going to ask you what I think your superpower is. I just, in this conversation, I know what it is, but
what is it? Tell me. I always want to know outside in, what do people think? Because, I think that's helpful. We don't seek that from other people.
That's really interesting. And especially when we're younger, right? It's not like the kind of thing that we talk about, right? And we don't, it's kind of like, I don't talk about that stuff, right? Now I get to a certain age, I found my safe people, I can have those conversations, right? So anyways, to answer your question, I mean, I think you're an excellent communicator. I think that's your superpower, right? I think you can walk into any room, and I said this to you. If we go back to the beginning of this podcast, right? My impression of you when I met you that night, right? And then speaking to you and watching you and listening to you, right? That's 100%, in my opinion, your superpower is how you communicate, and you're an amazing communicator. And by doing that, right, by having that power skill, it was interesting because I said this to my wife. We're visual people, human beings.
Yeah.
Right? I go, if I didn't see you across that room, almost 30 years ago, and I thought, wow, she's cute, I'm going to go talk to her, we would have never got to know each other. Right? And so we're visual people. So in a world in corporate Canada, let's just say, for example, and we chose careers where there weren't a lot of people that looked like us when we walk into the room, right? So visually, we're different. The way you carry yourself and the way you speak and the way you communicate is your superpower, in my opinion.
I appreciate that. I've heard that a lot. And
your intelligence, of course, right? Of course.
No, but I think that's awesome to hear. And again, it's great to feel validated that work that I've done to be able to be a stronger communicator, is being recognized or observed from other people outside. I would say for me, my answer would have been, I adapt really well to I'm forced to adapt to different situations. And maybe that comes from my childhood experiences of,
I can see that.
Having that, again, our parents have this survivor mentality all the time. And so, I think where I thrive is where if I'm put in an uncomfortable position, I'm confident that I can adapt to it.
Yeah. I mean,
And again, I think it's the people that have made me feel comfortable in that.
I think people definitely have, an impact for sure. But I think you were just wired that way as well too, because the overwhelming theme in this conversation, what I'm going to walk away from is like, you are so comfortable with being uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Again, maybe that's another one of your superpowers, right? That you're okay being uncomfortable, right? And maybe it's because you were that 5-year-old kid that had to sit on the couch and watch TV by himself, and you had to get comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Who knows? But today, in such a cool, positive way, like anybody that's going to listen to this, or the audience, and I always hope and pray that there's going to be some kid, right, that might be first or second generation Canadian, right, that's going to listen to this podcast and hear your story and go, wow, I want to be like that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's so dope for me. Like for that to be
that would be
possible.
Huge. That'd be
right?
huge.
It's possible, right? And it doesn't have to be a kid in Toronto. It could be a kid anywhere in the world that's listening to this that goes, you know what? I want to be like that. Or that's my experience, and I can transcend my adversity.
Yeah.
And I can rise to the top. And resilience is something that I want to adapt and adopt as part of my personality, because you've shown that in this entire conversation, like how resilient you are every time you push yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will just add one thing to that is, being adaptable or being comfortable in the uncomfortableness isn't easy. Like, I want to be honest. Like, it's not like I'm like, I want to be uncomfortable for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Or, I think there's self-talk that's very like, are you going to be able to do this? Is this the thing? Like, or you know what? Everything's on fire.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm going to sync with it. And those narratives happen, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just how I present myself sometimes is it's all happening inside me, that self-talk, but I still find resilience and the ability to overcome by either knowing that at the end of it all, there is still a village, a community, or people that I can rely on, or or going back to what my mentors have instilled is that there's always a solve. There's always a way you're going to figure this out. And so we tie those two things together. I don't want the narrative to be like, be comfortable in the uncomfortableness. I want the narrative to be like, there's a lot of things that happen in the background to look like you're comfortable in the uncomfortableness. And that's okay. Because if you surround yourself with the right people, if you have a good, support system, and if you can acknowledge some of the challenges you've had in life and how you've overcome them, then you start to look like you can thrive and be comfortable in the uncomfortable spaces.
Yes.
Is how I would wrap all of this together.
So, it's well said, because there's so much truth in that, right? That, it sounds simple. Like, I'm uncomfortable. I'm okay with being uncomfortable. But yeah, there are, anyways, you said it perfectly. There's always that challenge of, how do you keep putting one foot in front of the other, right? How do you keep doing that? So, this is usually, where we get to the end of our conversation, right? And I've heard you talk about, your legacy several times throughout this our conversation. But I would love to ask you the question, right? When your earth journey comes, is complete, how do you want to be remembered?
Man, I want to be celebrated. That's my ego there. No, you know what? I want to be known as someone that was a really good friend, a loyal person that showed up to the people that I love, whether that's, Isla, whether that's my closest friends, whether it's the people that I'm surrounded with at the time. I love people. I think like I thrive around people.
Yep.
And, whether good, bad influences or, people that have just kept me afloat, I think I really want to make sure that I leave my earth journey is that people feel like, man, like PK was in my corner, or like PK was there for me, or, PK was awesome. Yeah. He might be annoying sometimes, he might have been the worst here and there, but, he's a good guy that, showed up for me. Like, because that is how, I feel my life has been great, because I have had the privilege and I've had the fortunate sort of life where, I've had people that are, not the best for me,
right.
But I've also had so many people in my life that have been amazing for me, that have been a really strong support. And this is not just family. It's like friends, it's people that have come in and out of my life. It's colleagues, it's different, experiences that I've had where I'm like, wow, like it's amazing that I've had these experiences from different people. And so maybe my legacy is that, hopefully these people and, many other people might feel like, PK was an awesome dude and he was there for me.
Wow. Well, here's the thing. People are already saying that about you. So just keep doing what you're doing, brother. Just keep doing what you're doing, man. I want to thank you once again for your time. I want to thank you for your transparency. Shout out to Ange for telling him to go deep.
Yeah. And again, these are my experiences, so I don't, want anyone to feel like, oh, this is what everybody's experiences are. But, I think it's important to have this dialogue. I think like growing up, like you said, we didn't have a lot of different experiences from people that look like us.
Yeah.
And have shared experiences. So I think it's important to have these conversations. And yeah, like you said, it'd be awesome, if it impacts somebody and if it makes somebody feel that the opportunity is huge. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, man. Like, to our listeners, to that point, I hope you can see a part of yourself in PK and his journey, his life, his story, as first and second generation Canadians, our families may have originated all from around the world. But I do believe, like you said earlier, right? There's that common thread, right? We share a lot of common threads, right? And I think that's really important to point out. I hope today's episode really leaves the audience and the listeners with, the belief in the power of possibility, right? Because to me, it's kind of how I've always lived my life, and I'm a big champion of it. And I just love to keep saying it as many times as I can. I want to leave you with a quote that I found that was simple but very true. And I think, I do this quote thing at the end, and I was trying to find quotes for you and how do I do that, And I found one, and I think that it's so simple, right? And here's the quote by George Adair: "Everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear."
Yeah.
Right?
It's true.
It's so true. And it's so funny that we
just got to do it.
Yeah.
You just got to do it. Make the leap, make that jump, hope for the best. And like you said, like even with this podcast, you're like, am I going to fail? But it's like at the end of the day, you just want to do it because let's get the conversation out. You know what I mean? Let's get other people to talk as well. And open up in the same ways. So I think, to your point, it is, don't hold yourselves back because of fear.
My takeaway is, don't hold yourself back by fear. Surround yourself with really great people.
Yes.
From our conversation today, great people will help prop you up. You will learn from them. They'll help you grow. And
celebrate the people around you.
Yeah.
Honestly, I just think if we're talking about happiness, I think if you start celebrating the people around you, you'll really start to feel content. You really start to feel life is about the people that you're with and the shared experiences that you have. And that's what's going to make you happy.
I love that. Thank you, PK. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't say the wrong things.
No, God, no.
Please don't come for me. And thanks again for having me. And listen, kudos to you, man. I think you've been inspirational. Shouldn't forget that. I think you've done so much.
Thank you, sir.
You could see it, everybody around you. You might have had to gone to ask people about me. People just talk about you.
That's awesome. So that's enough.
You are amazing. Keep at it. And I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, PK. Thank you for tuning into The Who Project today. I hope our conversation has sparked a fire within you to reflect on your core values and the intentional choices that will define your journey. If you felt inspired by this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a boost of inspiration. Remember, your values are your guiding star. Let them lead you to a life brimming with purpose and fulfillment. Until next time, I'm PG, urging you to lead with what truly matters to you the most. And before I sign off, I want you to remember this. When you define who you are, you will discover the success you deserve.